Hey everybody, welcome to our first live stream in 2026. I feel like I should have came in with some music, but I'm thankful that we're here to see another year. We're at the top of the year, and of course, everybody's um, wondering what will 2026 bring when it comes to the housing market in regard to our home prices going to finally crash? Are they going to stay steady? Or are we going to see some type of increases in homes? So we will talk about that tonight. Let me just check real quick to make sure that I am live. So if you guys are not jumping on the stream as we're live, that you'll at least be able to catch the playback. So I'm not just sitting here, and let's just make sure real quick. Give me 1 second. Let me turn here just to make sure we are live. And if you are joining us tonight, don't be scared to subscribe to the channel if you found us. And then also don't be scared to hit the like button and also comment below if it makes sense to you, and share it to somebody that you feel this information might be great for them to kind of discuss or hear. Or let's see real quick. Just want to make sure we are live on my end, and then we're going to jump into the discussion. And of course, my phone is acting crazy, so let me check it real quick on my other device over here, because nothing ever goes right when you want to do it right. So I just want to make sure we're live. All right, perfect. We are live. I can see myself on my other device. So let's kind of jump into this. How the housing market crash in 2026? So first, we are going to jump into this article in regards to the housing market. And the title says, will home prices finally fall in 2026? So it doesn't say crash per se, but everybody wants to know, where are these home prices going? Will they finally fall? Can we see some relief as future homeowners that want to purchase a house, and they're not an investor, they're not trying to buy a house to flip it, they're not a mom and pop investor, they're not an institutional investor, they're just a homeowner that wants to create some type of home ownership in America or all over the world, depending on where you live at, and also be able to build hopefully that equity if we don't see a kind of stagnant motion in regards to the equity, because we know, because home prices inflated so quickly in a short period of time, that things might stay flat for a little while longer, or we might see a smaller appreciation going forward because home prices have surpassed what the income levels are for people trying to purchase a home. Hey, co-taxinista. Evil Twin here for my Clark Fix. Hey, how you doing? Happy New Year. Happy 2026. Thanks for joining the live stream. For some reason on my back end, I can't really see people, but I appreciate you joining the live stream in regards to the viewers. But I can only see, of course, if you comment. So I appreciate you joining here, Evil Twin. And let me know your thoughts as we kind of go through these articles and talk about what 2026 could possibly have in store for a home prices falling, possibly falling, depending on where you're at. Because as we always say, real estate is local. So I always advise people to talk to a local realtor in your area and kind of see what your market's doing. Everything that we're reading right now in these articles, these are national articles, right? So they're taking mediums of different areas and kind of putting everything together and creating an average per se, or a medium number across the entire nation of the United States. Of course, I don't have any data from any other places around the world. So if you are joining us from other places around the world, chime in, let us know how your housing market is doing and what you're seeing. Because I know it is a world thing. It's not just a United States thing. So in regards to the housing market, this article was written by Ben Carlson. He posted it December 4th, 2025. However, I felt like this would make a good conversation now that we're in 2026, and the question was posed for 2026. So he says, a reader asked, do you think we'll finally see housing prices fall in 2026? Redfin says there are way more sellers than buyers, and people with 3% mortgages can only hold on for so long. I know prices don't fall very often, but it seems like a softening labor market mixed with high sky prices could finally make it happen. What say you, Ben? So the guy was asking Ben. I don't know if you guys can see this. Let me just make it a little bigger on my end so you guys can see it on your end. If you're watching this back on the replay and you want to be able to see what we're reading. Have a hunch Lexington, Nebraska is going to take a hit. Craig, Colorado will become affordable as the coal mine and power plant shut down. Wow, okay. So in regards to Lexington, Nebraska, since I don't really know that area and I'm not sure if David is kind of in here right now, what are you seeing happening in that Lexington area? Do you see people kind of losing jobs? Do you see different, similar to like you said in Craig, Colorado, things kind of shutting down, commercial real estate being kind of empty per se? Are you kind of seeing those type of trends as far as jobs being lost and people kind of moving out? You said meat plant shut down. Okay. So, is that the Tyson? Is that Tyson, the Tyson plant? I'm sorry, I should kind of know more about that. Is that where the Tyson plant is at? Is in Lexington, Nebraska? Because I saw about the Tyson plant as far as I'm laying off a lot of employees, and I know Tyson does meat, so I'm not sure. Let me know. But yeah, that would make sense in regards to. Okay, I do believe so. Okay. Yeah, that would make sense as jobs kind of shut down, people get laid off. The economy kind of dwindles as far as not as many people being able to afford to live in those areas because the jobs are no longer there. It would make sense that prices would adjust and kind of start to go down a little bit. Hey, David, how you doing? Happy New Year. Happy 2026. Code Taxinista was just talking about how we were talking about Lexington, Nebraska may possibly see a shift in home prices that may soften a little bit, but let us know your input. I wasn't sure if that's where the Tyson plant was at as far as the meat plant. He said, we're gossiping about Nebraska. Exactly, we're gossiping about Nebraska. So let us know your insight. So in regards to this, it says, if you had told me back in early 2022 that mortgage rates would go from subprime 3% all the way up to 8% and stay above 6% for 3+ years, I would have assumed housing prices would have fallen by now. He says, nope, prices just keep going up. According to Robert Schiller's housing data, which we kind of dig into, even though some of the data is a little behind in regards to their data. However, it's still good data to kind of look into. Prices were up 6% in 2023, 4% in 2024, and nearly 2% so far in 2025. So even though they're saying prices are up, you can also see that prices are the percentage as far as prices going up going forward from 2023 to 2024 to 2025, and in 2026 the percentage is kind of slightly going down. So even though prices are up, they're seeing an increase, but the increase is starting to level out and become a little lower. Hey, Dad, my dad joined the stream as well. And so it says, however, I think you could make the sense that buyers are finally fighting back a little and saying enough is enough. Redfin data estimates sellers outnumber buyers by a substantial margin. And we talked about this on the last slide where it says home buyers and sellers, are both backing off. So even the sellers are backing off. And we all know that there were some sellers that were delisting, pulling things off the market as well, saying, hey, come 2026, I'm going to put it back on my listing back up on the market and see if I can possibly get the price that I want. Or some of them might turn around and actually list it higher. And if you have working with a realtor that is looking at the data in your area, if you're seeing that all the other homes in that subdivision are pricing lower or things are adjusting down, then even if you did delist because you had a certain price you had in mind and you're putting back on and that market has softened in that area, I don't think it would be a good thing to list the house higher just because you wanted that price. If you saw that prices readjusted down, I think it might be better for you to list where the market is currently pricing the house at. And ultimately, the buyer will determine the price anyway, right? The buyers will determine the price ultimately. But I would suggest that you put it where the market is currently bearing when it comes to that price point. So it shows right here that the sellers, so it shows on the chart, of course, it goes from 2013. And then it goes right here where the sellers are basically, they were up here, had the listings up here, then they're slowly taking them off as you see them decrease. And then the buyers, they were high up here. It was low in 2020 during that pandemic, and it skyrocketed, right? Because the mortgage rates were low. People were like, woohoo. And then prices got too high that people started to back off. Mortgage rates started to rise. And then we saw a shift again where the mortgage rates started to soften possibly, I think around this time, came down from about 7%, heading back down to the sixes. And so people felt like, okay, this is the time to kind of go about buying again. And then, of course, when they realized that the home prices were not kind of backing off and the mortgage rates were kind of staying steady in that 6 rate, they were like, oh, you know what, we're done. And they all kind of decided to back off the market, the buyers. And as you see, the buyers are starting to go down and down and down according to this particular graph that Redfin, I believe, yeah, Redfin MLS, Redfin supplied. It says 37% more home sellers than buyers. So right here is showing you that there are more home sellers, 36.8% more currently in the market as far as people selling houses than there are buyers in this current market. And then it says right here, Wall Street Journal says home builders are struggling to offload new homes despite the fact that they're offering much lower mortgage rates. And as we know, we talked about this on about several times on our different lives in regards to the new construction homes. What we're seeing now is that they're offering these buy downs, these fixed rate incentives as far as those mortgage rates, giving it at a 4.99%, because the big talk about affordability kind of started to circle around the mortgage rates. The mortgage rates are too high. Mortgage rates are too high, instead of really circling around the home prices and affordability, right? Adjusting those prices down and then making it make sense with the current mortgage rates, or also possibly adjusting prices down and giving maybe a mortgage rate incentive as well. Instead, a lot of these home builders decided to play on the other side where they bought these mortgage rates. So they paid, you know, the lending institutions to buy these mortgage rates down and all these different things. And instead of them, so they would, on the back end, they might give $60,000 to them to buy down the mortgage rate from 6% to 3% or 2%, whatever, as far as those points. And then on the front end, to you guys, all you know is that the mortgage rate is 3.99%, 2.99%. You don't realize how much they paid on the back end to get those rates down, where they could have actually took that money on the back end instead of paying the mortgage rate down and possibly lowered the cost of the house. However, as you guys know, most of the new construction builders are like, well, if someone bought a house at, let's say, $400,000 and we lower the house to $350,000, then we can mess up that possible affordability. Equity, in regards to those other homeowners that bought prior. However, I just felt like it should have just been lower in the beginning. David said, Lexington will take a hit, but Nebraska is a big state and the overall Nebraska housing market will be unaffected. Okay, all right. So Lexington might see that little hit. He said, how will it affect local producers for Tyson? Okay, so you have a conversation in regards to Tyson. And so, so we kind of already know that about the home builders, them giving those incentives. It says right here, America's biggest builders are struggling to sell homes even when they offer buyers a 4% mortgage. Their experience suggests rate cuts alone won't be enough to boost weak sales in the wider housing market. The number of completed but unsold new homes has reached levels last seen in summer of 2009. Data from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis shows at the end of last year, builders were confident that sales would recover in 2025 and built tens of thousands of units to have enough supply for the spring buying season, but the demand didn't pick up and more homes set unsold. So more homes set unsold, and then it kind of shows you right here the number of completed unsold homes. It's showing you of them completing the homes in this chart, if you guys can see. It said 220,000 homes, so going all the way up here. So they had about, and this, what was this about? This was in 2000 and like, what was it, 6, 7, 8. So about 2008, 2009, they had a bunch of homes, up to 200,000 homes. And then we're kind of seeing it do the similar thing where at peak, it went down because the home builders stopped building after they realized some of them actually foreclosed, depending if they were small independent home builders. The bigger home builders were able to kind of ride that wave because they have enough of cushion. And they've been around for so long, so they understand that real estate is cyclical. It goes up, it goes down. And so as we kept going, we see it adjusting back up, dipping again, and then going up again. And then eventually, as you guys can see, the wave is going up, down. So as we're climbing up here, we'll probably see another, you know, I guess I could say like a valley per se, kind of going down like a little in regards to possible prices. It says, in the houses that are selling are now seeing markdowns, that, and the National Association of Realtors data shows that nearly 60% of houses sold in 2025 came with at least one price cut. And so it's showing you here, right here, as far as price shares of the 2025 sales. It says sales price versus list price 2025, and it's showing you as far as the average difference between list price and sales price. So this is about those price cuts. Right here it says, why aren't housing prices falling more? One reason is the nationwide housing prices simply don't fall that often. So right here they have a chart in regards to how home prices have fell throughout the years. I think I was watching a live and David had this chart on there as well. David from Omaha, Nebraska, David Matney. And we were kind of seeing how this chart throughout the years, the percentage as far as home prices, how much they gained and appreciation throughout the years, and then when they kind of fell. So this is going from 1950, even though I wish this chart kind of went all the way back to 1930s, because that's when we saw the Great Depression. That's when we saw the whole instance of the housing market kind of seeing a dip. So I feel like they should have went that far back to kind of give you more data as far as housing. And that's, during that era as well, in order for the housing market to get saved, they had then put in place that 30-year mortgage with the and FHA and all those different things kind of came into fruition, and well, not fruition, but came into play. Those new type of entities were set up, and that was a way to save the housing market from crashing due to the foreclosure and in regards to that Great Depression time. So I wish they kind of would have expanded back further with this graph. But anyway, what it's showing you is that the appreciation as far as the home appreciation in the early 90s, I believe this was what the dot-com bubble, I believe, something around that time. We're kind of seeing when the home prices dipped in regards to the appreciation per se. And then it goes back up again. And then we see it again, of course, during that great financial housing crash when that subprime mortgage where the home prices, the appreciation and the home values and everything went down again and they dipped. So it's showing you how often it happens, and it doesn't happen a lot, but we do see times where the appreciation slows. So if you can see when that appreciation is slowing, it might give you some insight of when we might possibly see home prices maybe dip. So what I'm noticing in this chart is that right here in the 1950s, it went down. However, we didn't see anything dip here, but it stayed flat. And then it started to climb again, and then when it dipped again, we saw the prices go down. Like the appreciation didn't go up so much, or home prices didn't rise. Then we saw it again here. So we kept seeing it go up and down when you kind of would see that kind of happening. And then this is when we actually saw it in 1989, where it dipped below and went in that negative zone. So you might be able to, if you kind of stay on track of what's happening and see how and kind of track maybe the appreciation. If you see appreciation dipping and home prices dipping, you might be able to kind of track or kind of play around and see, oh, this might be a good time to kind of ease myself in the market as a buyer, or this might be a good time as a seller to look about selling. If you kind of follow and study that home data as far as appreciation and different things like that. Even though it's hard to predict the market, but you might be able to see something. It says prices have fallen on a nominal basis just 7 times out of the past 76 years, and those seven down years were clustered into 2 significant financial crises: the savings and loans crisis in the early 1990s and the great financial crisis. Okay, so I was wrong about the dot-com bubble in the 1990s, but I feel like maybe that was the early 2000s, the dot-com bubble. I don't know, but I thought it was in the 90s, like the 90s, but I don't know. But so the savings and loan crisis and then the great financial crisis when we saw that dip. And so you guys can basically turn around and say, well, now is it the unaffordability crisis mixed possibly with the jobs being lost? If you combine those together, would we be coming into an economy of job loss and unaffordability? Like, this is the savings and loan crisis in early 1990s. Would this era be the job loss possibly mixed with the unaffordability of home prices? Could that maybe bring down prices a little bit and start to see some correction as far as home prices dipping? David says, some years the growth is not very much or flat. It takes years before you break even. Yeah, exactly, David. It takes years, and I think that's what people have to realize. Even when we saw that financial crisis, the great financial crisis of 2000 and 2006, 2007, 8, 9, all that stuff. When I started doing the back end, some of these homes literally just regained their appreciation in 2019, 2018, 2019, and then they saw that boom in 2021 per se, right? But some of these like that time frame, that was about like 10 to 11 years, and then you saw, and then literally that the home prices that fell, and they had that correction and it crashed per se because of that subprime lending. It took 10 to 11 years before we saw a correction as far as that home getting back up there. So all of this, the thing about real estate, as we all know, is a long-term gain, or game, however you want to say it. And so it takes time to let everything kind of play out throughout the whole system. So, and that's why it becomes hard to kind of time a market and to try to say, I know when the housing market will crash, or is it going to be a crash, or is it just a correction? Is it a balancing? Is it a evening out? Is it kind of, a flat line? Right now, we're kind of more in a stagnant position where you have the sellers that don't want to really budge on prices. You have buyers that are like, I'm not trying to pay more for something that they might see possibly on Zillow where that person bought so many years ago. And if you go in those houses and those persons haven't made any changes or updates, they're like, this house was built 1980. You paid, let's just say, $40,000 for it, and you never updated anything in this house. It still has 1980 vibes, but you want $350,000 for it. It makes it hard for some of these buyers to want to buy a house that they feel like nothing has been updated, but yeah, you want more than what you paid for it when they can kind of see the numbers, on Zillow. Every state, of course, you can't see it in every state, but in states like where I'm at in Georgia, you can see what these people bought it for so many years ago. So when I'm talking to these buyers, they're like, yeah, no, they still have 1980s cabinetry and flooring and paneling on the walls and judge panels in the living room and all this stuff. And they're like, judge paneling, I'm sorry, in the living room. And they're like, I don't want to pay that price for that. And there's nothing really done. So you have this kind of back and forth right now with buyers and sellers. David said, another problem with this chart, you don't see seller pay concessions. Yes, David, that is another problem with that chart too. I'll go back up to the chart. There's another problem with this chart. You don't see seller pay concessions. And this is the discussion I had earlier with my dad about a house in Florida that my cousin is trying to sell across the street. The other people just sold their house. And when you go on the back end, the price that they sold it was less than what they listed for. But then you go on the back end, you also see they gave $11,000 in closing costs, those concessions that people don't see. You don't see those concessions up front. You don't see if they possibly gave a home warranty. You don't see if the seller paid for a termite clearance letter. You don't see if the seller possibly, if you're in a place where you have septic tank, you don't see if they possibly paid to get the septic tank pumped. You don't see if they had to repair anything that they agreed to and any amendments. So you don't see all this, and ultimately that kind of dwindles down inside that seller's pocket as well. So there's a lot of things people don't see up front. And of course, even as a realtor, we can see from a back end in the back end and with the MLS in regards to those concessions, but then we can't see those other things that might have added into that whole closing, right? Those small little things like the home warranties and all these different things as well. So so I said MHOA, Co-Taxita. He said, LOL, I forgot about Keaton 5. I don't know who Keaton 5 is. Who's Keaton 5? He said, was also a recession 1990-91. Yes, there was a recession. And of course, in that 2007, 2008 era, there was a supposed recession as well, because that's when I kind of came out of college and really couldn't find no job. David said the savings and loan crisis was the early 90s. Okay. Hey, what's going on, Lang? Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I can see the old Silverado S and L from my kitchen. So you still see the old thing. He said, I have a state of art 1923 kitchen. Okay, see, and that's what makes it hard, right? When people, like, to you, this is gold. It's like, yes, I have a very antique almost type of like kitchen or style or whatever. But then you have like the younger generation that might come into your house and like, this kitchen's from 1923 and they want how much for this house? So it does make it hard for people to kind of see that as well. Hey, what's going on, Miss H? Happy New Year to you as well. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us. We're just talking about, will the housing market crash in 2026? That is what's on everybody's mind. So we're kind of going through this article, talking about different things in regards to where we saw prices kind of dip throughout the 76 years in the housing market. And then David as well said that most people can't really see the back end, which is true as far as any paid closing concessions, any type of things on that back end. So it says, and while prices crashed more than 25% in 2008 debacle, the 1990 downturn was a drawdown of a little more than 2%. There were 11 recessions in this 76 time frame since 1950. So even when there is a recession, it's highly unlikely that home prices will fall. Housing prices don't fall on a sustained bias that much. If you're holding out hope for a crash, you might be waiting a very long time. However, this is nationwide prices. Everyone knows housing is local. In certain parts of the country, which we talked about earlier, where we're kind of digging through this data, that real estate is local. So always talk with a local realtor in your area. Yes, it's great, and I appreciate everybody that watch these videos, joining these conversations. But ultimately, I'm based in one market. So even though I'm seeing stuff on paper, or I can see things that's happening with different articles, different conversations, I'm not in that market. So if anybody was to come to me and say, hey, can you help me or give me insight about what's going on in Nebraska, I would send you to David, because I don't ultimately know Nebraska's market. Real estate is very local to the market. So I always tell people that are looking to buy or sell in real estate, you can watch all these wonderful videos and have this wonderful real estate conversation, because it's great. And I love having conversations with everybody about real estate. But ultimately, once you hear this conversation and you want to move forward or dig deeper, you should go and find someone that's local to your area, or ask the person that you're possibly reading an article or watching a video from them. Say, hey, do you might have a referral or know somebody in that network of where I'm trying to shift to, right? Because I can't give you advice about Nebraska. David can. David said the Keaton Five were the corrupt politicians at the time. Oh, okay. He says kind of sounds like a boy band like Backstreet Boys. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know who Keaton Five is. Okay, Keaton Five. I have to look into that. He said no point in updating. Everybody wants to tear it down. Okay, so you said basically they're looking at your house as a tear down, so there's no point of updating, which makes sense. Sometimes if you're selling a house too, right? If people are just coming in and they're going to tear it down, or they're going to do some type of alterations or something to it, there's no point of putting any money into it, because you ultimately want to get out. You might not get out what you put in. So John McCain was among them. Oh wow, John McCain. Wow, okay. I know John McCain. Wow, I didn't know he was among the Keaton Five. Wow. He said, you will always be MHOA to me. Yes, yes. He said, LOL, I got banned from Clark's channel. I must have put some words together the algorithm didn't like. It's happened a couple times before. Oh no, the algorithm didn't like it. Oh well, I hope it doesn't continue to ban you. Yeah, YouTube creates their own type of algorithm. So if you put certain words in, it will ban you. So gotta be careful with the words. It does that. They create their own algorithm. Maybe you, me, and MHOA ought to open up a daycare in Minnesota. Hey, we should. We open up a daycare. That would be great. He said 2-story duplexes are being built. Okay, so that's good. Some duplexes are being built, which creates possibly more, I don't want to say, well, it creates more people in the area, right? Because you could 2-in-1. Also, it creates more of a space where possibly they can build more, so people can have more affordability as far as housing, if the duplexes are affordable. Because I don't know. Nowadays, I know people that are making duplexes, they're not as affordable. So that would be great, though, if it was affordable, multi-family housing. I'll be in the doghouse for a few months. Oh, no, please don't be in the doghouse for a few months. We love having conversation. We love that you come and chat with us, David, Jen, Jackie, myself, Christina. So they got to take you out the doghouse. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to take you out the doghouse though. But hopefully they don't make you stay too long. It says home prices already fallen. Lance Lambert shows that there are parts of the country where medium home prices are dropping substantially in some cases. So right here it says change in metro level home prices since each metro's respective peak in 2022. And we saw this chart before, I believe, where it's showing the home prices dipping. Of course, you have Texas. You have Phoenix, you have some parts of California, you have, of course, Florida. As you can see right here, this is where we're at in Atlanta. We're seeing that soften in Atlanta, Louisiana, different things like that. So we will go into the next thing. let's stop sharing this, and I'm going to pull up this article. Let me know your thoughts so far, how you guys are feeling. Code Taxita said, old zoning was the structure, couldn't be more that like, so maybe then like 2 to 5 on the lots. Now we're allowed to go fence line to fence line. It's really too bad. Okay, so with you guys going fence line to fence line, are they building the home that large where there's no actual space in between the houses now? Is that what you're kind of saying? I'm guessing, which is kind of crazy if there's no space between those houses. But I guess I don't know again how everything is around your area. I'm guessing how to try to possibly make affordable housing or try to make more housing. Is that the reason why they rezoned that and they're allowing for that to happen, to try to create more housing, but also possibly affordable housing with the duplexes and everything? Most home here sit on double lots, no more yards. Oh wow, okay, wow, that's crazy. Well, what you paying for? just the structure on the land, I guess, because there's no yards for you to enjoy, no yard for you to enjoy. So that's not great. All right. Let's also take a look real quick at the foreclosures according to Adam, the data on Adam, real quick. So this is Adam, and we'll look at the foreclosures real quick. We kind of touched on this a little bit before in another video. It says U.S. foreclosure rate by state. So this was in it said November 2025, but they posted in December 2025. Again, we are in 2026, but we're looking, of course, data. If you guys don't know, real estate data is always, it lags. So we won't know the data for January until we kind of get into like February, March. So we're looking backwards to hopefully see forward, if it makes sense. He said, I still got my yard. Okay, yeah, you gotta have your yard. Gotta have at least a piece of land to go outside to enjoy. Right. So right here it's showing the different states that are that are seeing foreclosures kind of rise. We have right here number 1 is Delaware. It says Delaware is number 1. So I'm guessing people might say, why is Delaware number 1? And I'm just going to assume from this chart right here, the reason why it might be number 1 is because it's according to how many people live in that state, according to the foreclosure, the amount of homes being foreclosed on. So I'm thinking that's how they're possibly doing it, listing it at number 1. But Delaware is number 1. Number 2, South Carolina. Number 3 is Nevada. Number 4 was New Jersey. Number 5 was Florida. Number 6 was Indiana. Number 7 is Illinois. Pennsylvania is number 8, and number 9 is Utah, and 10 is Maryland, as far as I'm seeing those foreclosures picking up in 2025. It says, what is the current foreclosure rate in the U.S.? In November 2025, U.S. foreclosure activity dipped slightly from the prior month, but continued to trend higher than a year earlier. Total filings in regards to foreclosures, 35,651 properties with default notices, scheduled auctions, or bank repossessions. So people got to be mindful in regards to the foreclosures. These are just, like I said, with default notices. So some of these foreclosures, they might have pre-foreclosure default notices, any type of distress notices. However, they didn't foreclose. Some of these homeowners might have turned around. They might have did a bank modification. Did my screen freeze? Let me know if you guys can still hear me, because I can't see myself on the other end. Homeowners might have did a bank a bank loan modification. Talk to the lender. They might have claimed bankruptcy. They might have did several things to kind of keep them out of foreclosing at the moment. So even though the filings might have been up 35,000 properties, and if these 35,000 properties, I'm guessing this is throughout the whole United States of America. So in an overall scheme, it's very low amount of foreclosures being foreclosed or filed per se, right? And some of them might turn around and, like they said, schedule auctions or bank repossessions. But again, in auctions, I know in the state of Georgia that the homeowner has all the way up to the day of the auction. Even they have up to the auction itself to actually call and do some type of bankruptcy, some loan modification, or do something to kind of stop that auction from happening and getting them out of that default status for foreclosures. David said, it's unfortunate for the people being foreclosed on, but for the overall health of the market, it is actually a good thing. Exactly, David. I don't think people realize that every housing market sees foreclosures, right? We just saw a lot more during those more those times of crisis, as far as the financial crisis, as far as even back in the 1930s with the Great Depression and different things like that, we saw more come to the market because of those situations and those circumstances at that time. However, every market, in order to have a healthy market, goes through foreclosures. Like again, these filings at 35,000 in total, that's really in the overall, in the grand scheme, that's not really a lot of foreclosures per se. However, it kind of varies depending on what state you're in, right? You might see a lot more foreclosures in certain states, and then overall, most of these foreclosures might only be in those states, and you might see slim pickings in other states when it comes to foreclosures. That's what people got to realize too. Again, these having these conversations and reading these articles and listening to some of these correspondence on like CNN, CNBC, and all these other platforms. They're looking at a national medium, national averages, like everything is national, and then you start to break it down depending on where you're at. So again, that takes me back to making sure you talk to a local professional in your area so you can actually understand where that area is at, where it's currently at, where is it possibly trending to, and where it could possibly go, which is the same thing, trending to in the future, right? So it says monthly change down 3% from October 2025. So it's saying that the foreclosures actually saw a trend down in October 2025, and then it went back. Says, but year over year that they were up 21% from November 2024. And it says national rate, 1 in every 3,992 housing units had a foreclosure filing. And again, we saw the states, Delaware, South Carolina, all these states right here. And then it breaks it down as the states as far as foreclosure rate, total foreclosure filings, the change from the date and all that as far as from 2024 to 2025. And it shows all the states on the list. And Georgia, because I'm in Georgia, we're number 24. And it says foreclosure rate in Georgia is 4,295. And it says total foreclosure filings were 1,044. So in the Metro Atlanta area in Georgia and everything, some of these filings, what I'm seeing is that they'll get a distress notice, a foreclosure notice, and then they'll turn around and it might be an LLC. The LLC might have had a renovation loan if they're renovating the house. And so with them taking out that renovation loan or some type of construction loan, it might be a 1-year loan and it's coming due and they haven't, and that loan is now defaulted, and then they get hit with the foreclosure notice. And then some of these LLCs, what they do is they end up turning around, they just go back and refinance, remodify, or do something to the loan, and then they get out of foreclosure. So that's what I'm noticing in some of our foreclosures in the Metro Atlanta area. Some of them are just investor-owned properties that are foreclosing. Of course, we're getting homeowners that are foreclosing that can't afford to pay their bills. But then we're also getting the mom-and-pop investors, corporate investors, more mom-and-pop investors, not really corporate, that are getting those distress notices for closing. We're getting homeowners who can't afford their mortgage at all, so they're foreclosing. We're getting, unfortunately, people who might have been going through probate because of a death situation happened. They didn't realize they got to still pay the taxes if the taxes are due, or any mortgages that are due, and so they're not paying them, so they're getting hit with foreclosures as well. Filing. So it's a mixture of a bunch of different things that are hitting those foreclosure filings. So you just got to understand what is kind of foreclosing and what's going on. It says lenders initiate foreclosure proceedings on 23,720 U.S. properties during November 2025, a 6% decrease from October, but still 17% above level since 1 year ago. So again, what's happening now is that some of these people that have been riding the wave as far as maybe not paying their monthly mortgage fees, they are now starting to get those notices in the mail from the lenders, and they're starting to hit them with these kind of filings like, okay, we're not allowing you to extend stuff no more. We're not allowing you for no loan modifications. You're not allowed to file bankruptcy no more. All these type of things that kind of stop the distress from happening. And so year over year from 2024 to 2025, because we didn't see that much happening, we didn't see the government kind of regulating things as far as, but now they're kind of taking those, I guess you could say, training wheels off. And with them taking those training wheels off in regards to that, these homeowners are now seeing those notices. And because of that, we're seeing an increase. Even though there's a decrease from 2025, there's an increase from 2024. So who rounds out the bottom 25? Let me see. So the bottom 25, sorry. It is New York. So New York, if that's what you're asking for, let me see if you guys can see it. So New York rounds out that 25 as far as foreclosure rates. Colorado, you guys are number 31. So you're not really seeing much going on in Colorado. But because MHOA, you're in Colorado, right? Not seeing much really in Colorado, but the rounding out the 25 is New York City. So, well, New York, the state, New York State. Yep. All right, so let's stop this real quick. And I wanted to play this. So this is a young lady. She is also, she's a lender. She talks about mortgages. I believe she's based out of North Carolina. And this is something else I wanted to talk about too, because answering this question, will the housing market crash in 2025? That's why we were looking at the foreclosure stuff. That's why we were having a conversation about new construction, about the home prices and affordability. But then this is what's happening too. I don't know if you're seeing this, David, but what this lender discussed in this video is very interesting. And I would love to have a discussion with her, because I'm like, well, why did you help them get into a home if you knew they couldn't afford it? But let me see. Let me go back. So let's listen to this real quick about what she said in regards to a person who just purchased. He said, we need to try harder. He said, Colorado, y'all need to try harder to get on the list, to get up there, to get in the top 25. All right, so this is what a lender said she experienced a couple months ago in regards to helping a homeowner get into a house.
My buyer closed on their brand new home and missed the first 3 mortgage payments. Let's talk about it. Hey, y'all. Hey, my name is Joy Bailey. I am a licensed mortgage loan officer in Charlotte, North Carolina, licensed to do loans in a bunch of different states. And on here, we talk about the good, the bad, and ugly of home loans. And baby, this thing was ugly. It was disgusting. I almost wanted to vomit. So the buyer reaches out to me because they were denied for a loan with another lender. I say, I think I can do it. The debt to income ratio was too high. We did some math and we figured out that property wasn't going to work out, but another property would.
And so that's the first sign. If you talk to the lender and you were denied to buy a house, the first thing like she tried to do was basically get them to go and find another house that might be more affordable in their debt to income ratio as far as their monthly payments, and making sure any other debt they had to pay off would suffice and put them in a good place. However, sometimes it might not be the best time to buy.
Buyer goes under contract. The buyer was going to get some down payment assistance. The buyer was getting money from the seller to cover the closing costs and buy the interest rate down. So they didn't need any money for the transaction. Well, not quite that. In order to close on the transaction, the interest rate had to be a very specific rate, because the debt to income that we were approving was a 56.4.
And that's another no-no. If your debt to income is above, really the general rule of thumb is that you want to keep it below 30% if possible. Even though I know most Americans nowadays in the US, because home prices are very unaffordable, they're very high. And even throughout the years as things climbed and the income didn't keep up with the home prices, most people were exceeding that 30% type of debt to income ratio. But you want to try to keep your monthly mortgage lower than that, because you have so many other expenses to take up, right? So let's keep going.
So the realtor says, hey, I'm going to volunteer some money. She volunteered $5,000 to help the borrower get to the closing table.
And so if you guys don't know, this is something that realtors always do, right? If a buyer or a seller is really trying to get out of a situation or get into a situation, I guess you could say buying a house, that if you have a realtor that wants to feel like they're assisting or helping in some way, they will offer something. They might give and take, right? However, in this situation, as a realtor, it seems like from the story she's telling that this realtor was just trying to close this deal. I don't agree upon what they did to do this, because it already showed me that there was a constraint in regards to this person buying a house. And this is what I'm scared that we'll see in regards to people who just bought within the last couple years, when it comes to foreclosures possibly going up, or people trying to sell their house on the market that might, depend on the area that you're in, start to push prices down if a bunch of inventory comes on the market. So let's keep going.
Closing day comes, borrower closes, literally gets the money back from the earnest money that was put into the transaction. Well, I go on about my life like a normal person would. I get a phone call last week. Hey, your borrower closed in July. The first payment was due September the 1st. No payment was made September 1st. No payment was made October 1st. No payment has been made November 1st. Child, it was November the 14th. And I thought I was going to throw up. I did. I thought I was literally going to regret.
See, what people don't understand in regards to lenders as well, and this was a conversation I actually had with a lender of mine, is that the loans have to, I guess, I don't want to say mature. I forget how she kind of said it. The loans is a certain period of time when a person buys a house that they have to be within that house and pay that mortgage before they try to sell it, or if they default or X, Y, and Z. If not, then the lender is on a hook as far as repaying. What did she say? It's some type of fee, or I don't know if it's the origination fees or whatever, but I think I don't know if she talks about it in this video, but they're on the hook of paying back the loan on like some part of whatever in that loan somewhere. So most lenders don't want you guys to not pay the mortgage when you first get a mortgage, and they want a certain period of time to go by to make sure they're not repaying any fees.
Regurgitate everything that was on the inside of me, because the reason why I get on this platform and I talk about why it's important for you to have money to be able to get a loan is because what has happened prevents the loan from being sold, and it's called a buyback. And a buyback puts the loan officer in a position to have to repay their commission. Let's pretend.
There you go, their commission. So they have to, the lender would have to repay their commission or their fees. So I knew it was something that because I had this conversation with my loan officer in regard to a young lady who had purchased, and she purchased right away, not with me, actually with another colleague. We were in the office talking about this, and she wanted to sell the house a month later after she purchased, and the lender was like, wait, if you do that, I'm gonna have to repay my fees or whatever. So she's saying right here, it's called a buyback.
$5,200. My buyer closed on their brand new home.
So yeah, so that is what I'm kind of scared of too. Cole Taxita said, my mortgage is 11% of my income and I don't make a lot of money. I wear the golden handcuffs. Okay. Well, the good thing is that if it's only 11% of your income, you're still doing good. Even if you don't make so much money, it's still very lower compared to you going to that 56%, 60% of that income, that debt to like income ratio. So I don't know if you have any other debt outside of the house per se of paying it off, but if it's 11%, I believe you might be doing okay. You might be doing okay. Yeah, so that is another situation in regards to that particular video right there, where I'm kind of seeing now that some of these people who might have purchased in the last couple of years, maybe in 2022, 2023, 2024, that they are trying to sell now. And with them trying to sell now, I'm like very scared per se that as more inventory comes to the market, again depending on where you're located, you will see possible more adjusting downward home prices, which is great for buyers on that side because again you're able to possibly afford home prices, right? I mean home ownership. Sorry, you're able to afford possible home ownership. Because if your income is still rising, if you're fortunate to still have income rising or a good enough income and you've been saving, adjusted with these home prices kind of dwindling down, you'll be able to finally even out where it makes sense and that debt to income ratio is not crazy expensive. It's not crazy and out of reach for you, sorry. LOL, with that mortgage, no other debt. Okay, so you're good to go. No other debt, you just got a mortgage 11%. You're good to go. You don't got to worry about our conversation of staying at under that 30%, because that 11%, you're better than most people, All right, so in regards to will the housing market crash in 2026, it's all local. Again, what we were talking about is very local to where you're at. In the metro Atlanta area of Georgia, I do see a softening occurring. I do actually see home prices shifting down a little bit more. I've already seen it happen. He said, luckier. Yes, you are definitely, you are in a great position. I see home prices shifting down a little bit more. But also up where I'm at right now, that right now I'm in Jersey visiting family, but just down the street, it is a new construction home builder. But and I'm going to go down there and take some videos sometime this week of the place. But they adjusted their prices from, they were starting at 271. They're down. I mean, they were starting at 371. They're down to 339. So even in states and areas where they're saying that home prices are still kind of holding steady or prices are going up, like this Jersey area per se, depending on what part of Jersey you're in too, prices are kind of seeing a downturn. So again, you got to talk to the local realtors in your area. You got to see what's happening in that area, because it's very bifurcated now. And this market is very all over the place. Like you could be in one neighborhood, prices could be high. Then you can go down the street to the next neighborhood, prices could be dropping. So you just got to understand where you're at and what area you're looking at. Lang said, what is the percentage for a mortgage of your income, or what is the income percentage for the mortgage? So I don't know that in-depth information, so I don't want to tell you a lie. But I do know that they say when it comes to your debt to income ratio, a good place to kind of put you at is 30% in regards to making sure that mortgage is no more than that 30% line. So I don't know if that would equate to this question that you're asking, to kind of stand underneath that 30%. But if you can get as low as 11%, like Coast Texita, then you would be good to go. Code Texasita, if you can get that 11%. But I would say under 30%, I would just say, just to answer a question, or if you can go that 28% or a little lower, just because it puts you in a better space and you're able to round out any other debt that you have. And then total, when it comes to paying the mortgage and then paying those other debts, you don't go above that 50%. So if anything was to happen, if you were to kind of possibly lose a job, or you were to possibly be in a space where you can't work, and you're able to still save some money, put some money aside in the bank, where then that way, if those occurrences happen, you can still afford that monthly mortgage until you find another job or until you go back to your work. So I would say try to stay underneath 30%, underneath 28%. If you can get all the way low as 11%, that would be even better. So then that way you can actually be able to put enough money aside in your savings account that might equate to how much your monthly mortgage is. So then if something does happen or occur, you can possibly save 6 months, maybe 9 months. I always tell people, if you can save a year, I know it's hard to save a year, especially in this economy with these prices and, gas and food and everything you're paying. But if you can possibly save a year, that's even better. But 6 months is great. And I know before people used to say 3 months, but we know now, as far as even getting a job, it's kind of harder, and it's taking longer for people to get a job if they're being laid off. So it's taking more than that 3-month period to do so. So try to save 6 months to 12 months. So I would say, and with that question, Lang, that I would tell people to go under 30%. And again, you'll probably get a little bit more in depth in regards to that question if you ask like a local lender or a mortgagor to say like, what is a good price or a good percentage per se that you could kind of stay under. I just recalculated with the increase in taxes and insurance, I'm at 13.5%. Hey, but you still lower than most people. So you still had a great space, even with the increase of the taxes and insurance. I know so many people would love to come and pay your mortgage, because I'm guessing your mortgage is probably not even close to $1,000 at all a month. Okay, yep, no problem, Lang, no problem. All right, so let's kind of read through this article again in regards to home prices. Will the market crash in 2026? So this right here was an article. Sorry, I don't know why there's all these daggone things in here, but this was an article in regards to charted the decline of the U.S. housing affordability 1967 through 2023, and it kind of talks about the U.S. housing market, and it shows us the chart as far as when those prices we saw adjusting up, and then we saw them go down, which we kind of talked about earlier in regards to the ebbs and the flows. It also shows as far as how did the housing income compared to the housing prices. So as we saw the house prices keep going up, income kind of has been staying dang near steady since the 70s. So we haven't really seen much of an income increase since the 1970s. A very small income increase, and of course we know some people get lucky and they're able to become millionaires and make $1 million have $1 million create $1 million income, but most Americans, their income is steadily increases. David said, "What about his home in Aspen?" Oh, oh yeah, I forgot. What about your home in Aspen? How much are you paying for that a month, Code Taxita? I'm like, because those homes, what, $22 million, $40 million. So, and I know you go up there every now and then to have your vacay. So it says, it kind of breaks it down some more according to, what's this called, Visual Capitalist. We want to scroll down here because I really wanted to look at this chart down here in regards to, it says, tracking U.S. home prices versus home incomes. The median sales price of the U.S. home reached $428,600 in 2023. That price was more than 5 times the median household income of $80,610 that year. See how both metrics have moved since 1967. It says right here, the widening gap underscores why today's buyers feel squeezed even with low down payment loans and longer mortgage terms. And then it comes down here in regards to this. It says the affordability ratio has doubled since 1970. Dividing price by income yields a home price ratio, a quick gauge of affordability, a ratio of 3%. A ratio of 3 is often cited as sustainable benchmark. So they're saying that if it's 3 times your monthly income, it's typically cited as sustainable. So when I read this, I was like, I wonder if that is why too, when it comes to you renting, they typically say, oh, you have to make 3 times of your monthly income to afford said rent. So they're saying in this chart, and I'm kind of compared it that way, so I don't know if this is what it's really saying, but I'm like, oh, well, does that kind of compare where they talk about the 3 times ratio? So it says back in 1970, the typical new home cost 3.2 times the median income. So it breaks it down right here. Oh, sorry, I went down in the chart. Sorry. So in 1967, it's showing how much the median home income was $53,530. The median home price in 1967 was $200. Oh, sorry, no, that's wrong. Where is it at? Hold on. Did it make the price right? It didn't change the price. Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. Let me see. Let me make sure. Yeah, okay, all right. So it's saying that around that time was that median income was around 53,000 a year, and that the supposed home prices, as far as the median home prices, were around 207,000, and it says that the home price ratio was 3.87 in 1968. So you see the increase of the how much the median house income was. So it's not increasing that much. Home prices are kind of going up a little bit. Then it dips right here in 1970s, and then it comes back up in the 1970s, and then we go to 1975. We see the income slowly increase again, and then income kind of dips back down here in the 1980s, and home prices go up. They go up. They go up. They go up, and then they're dip right here, but they're still above as far as the ratio. So they're in the 4. So the ratio is going up. So it goes past the 3 times ratio, and we're in the 4 time ratio now. And then by the 1982, we see the income kind of start to dip again, and we see home prices dip, and then we see that ratio go down as well. And then we go to 1983, we see it go back up to the 4 as far as that ratio difference, then the 3s again, and then it dips. So it dips, stays steady here, and then it goes back up again in the 1986, and then it keeps going up. As you guys can see, it dips a little bit right here from 4.32 to 4.2, 4.16 in 1998, but it doesn't go back down into that 3 ratio where they kind of said it's more affordable for homeowners. It stays in the 4s, and then we see the dip, and because it's going to the 5s, and then all of a sudden in 2007, that's 2008, 2009, it dips back into that 4 ratio of the home price. However, you see home prices are at $328,000, $68,000. So we went from $71,000 in 2007 The medium house income dips again. Home prices, they dip here from 364 to 328. We see that dip in that home price ratio, 307, 309, 307, and then it starts to climb again, and then it climbs again, and then it dips a little bit here in 2019, and then it keeps climbing, and then we're in 2022. We're going to 5.8 with that ratio, and then it dipped now in 2023 to 5.32. So maybe, possibly, we might see a dip. I'm not sure as far as those home prices. Will we see a crash? The thing in regards to the crash, this is what I'm telling people in regards to the crash. So we'll round this up right now. So so you guys we can get to the final answer to the question as far as the crash. Let's see what David said his $300 million as home is paid off. Okay, it's paid off. It's doing okay. It's one of the few Airbnbs. Okay. He said, but it's only worth 2.8 million now. Oh, it went down in price. Oh no, it went from 300 million to only 2.8. That's not good. That's not good. I've played with the inflation calculator. Home prices have exceeded inflation. It said pretty harsh recession in the early 80s. Yeah, it's pretty harsh recession in the early the 80s, and we kind of saw that layoff in regards to some of those home prices dipping a little bit. Of course, people's incomes were dipping as well. But in regards to the question, will the housing market crash in 2026? This is what I'm telling everybody, that home prices will possibly correct depending on where you're at, right? In the Metro Atlanta area, we will see a correction. Will it crash to see what happened in 2008, 2009, where home prices were $30,000, $40,000? I don't foresee it going that low. I foresee it kind of readjusting, correcting, and possibly dipping about 30 to 40%, depending on what area. And some locales, depending on where you're at, might see 50%, 70% adjustment. Not sure. It just depends on how much people want to be in those certain areas, right? But it's not going to go as low as people feel like they're going to be able to afford a home at. They're going to buy a home for $80,000. But it will adjust if a home, and let's say in 2020, the home price in your area, the medium average home price in your area was $200,000. Taking the time as far as typical appreciation, about that 2 to 7% appreciation point, I would say if a house with $200,000, the median house might be $200,000, then we might see some correction in regards to a house now being possibly $299,000, $300,000, compared to maybe $500,000. If it corrects accordingly, and also you factor in typical appreciation throughout the housing market, you might see a home that the median might adjust from $400,000 in your market to possibly down to $350,000, or maybe $300,000 or $320,000. So that's what I kind of predicting. It depends on how your market, what you're kind of seeing in your market. As far as a total crash all the way to the bottom, we're not going to see a total crash. No housing market has ever seen a total crash. Even when the houses crashed in 2007, 2008, we didn't go from a house being $120,000 to going all the way down to a house being now $5,000, right? But we will see a correction. We will see an adjustment as far as home prices. And again, it's all going to go down to what your area is forecasting or what it can bear in regards to that market, and adjusting accordingly. So that is my answer to will we see a housing crash in 2026? I believe we will see an adjustment. I believe we will see prices go back down. However, I don't see a major crash where it's like 70% off of all real estate throughout the United States of America. I see that it'll be local to the area that you're in, local to the demand per se, how many houses are being listed in the area, how long are they sitting, and where should they be at when it came to 2019, 2020 market, as far as taking that normal appreciation value, where should the house kind of be at now in 2026? So I would tell people, if you want to feel that you're buying a house at the best price point for the best time in this market, then maybe reassess that math and take it from where we were at in 2019, 2020, as far as where home prices were at, add on a typical amount of appreciation throughout the last 6 years, and adjust it accordingly to see if the home prices have now came down to where it should be according to normal appreciation and not the equity inflation in which we got during the pandemic, which might have been about 30, 50, 70, depending on where you're at. Some parts of Georgia were like 100%, 200 and some percent. So it just depends on where you are located. So before we get out of here, let me see. Oh, you said sorry, 280 million. Oh, sorry. So he said, I was ready to start a GoFundMe to help with your loss of equity. Yes, I was ready to start a GoFundMe too, David. But I appreciate everybody joining us for this first of the year live stream. If you don't know David as well, he has a YouTube channel. He is a great realtor based out of Omaha, Nebraska. So I want you guys, if you haven't already, go over and give David a subscribe his channel, check him out. Definitely tune into his lives. He has wonderful lives, great information. So I'm going to share David's channel real quick so you guys can check him out and go over to subscribe to his channel. We got to get David to 7,000 subscribers. So we need you guys, if you haven't done yet, subscribe to David's channel. He's at 6,300 and something subscribers. So we got to get him 7,000. You guys have a wonderful night. Happy New Year again. And I will see you guys on Wednesday and next Sunday. All right, take care. Thanks again. And like David said, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and also share the video if it makes sense and someone needs to hear it. Hit the like for Clark's stream. Yes, hit the like. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, David. Have a wonderful night. Thank you all for the great information. Great show. Great show. Thanks, Lang. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Kotaxita. He said he's driving out of here. All right, you guys. I'll see you next Sunday. Take care. Bye-bye.